Hey guys, and welcome back. Parents have been messaging me every day with tons and tons of questions talking about how homeschool is just a disaster. Their kids aren't listening, they won't attend to the computer screen, they won't do what they ask. And I've been working really, really hard, even gave quotes to the New York Times, to Forbes this week on how to help parents get their kids to attend to different activities. But I was unexpecting when a mom reached out to me and said, hey, homeschooling is going awesome. I would love to come on your YouTube channel and share what's working. It was the first time I have heard a parent say, homeschooling is awesome, I love it, and it's working. So I said, absolutely, come on here, because there are thousands and thousands, if not millions of parents all around the globe that are trying unsuccessfully to do homeschooling right now. She's been on here before. Her name is Leeza Woodbury. She's the blogger of Mama AF and the mom of an autistic son. Leeza, tell us, what is working and how did you find the magic sauce?
Yes, I found the magic sauce, and I honestly have to say my days have completely flipped around. Took about 8 weeks to get there, if I'm being totally honest. Lots of ups and downs, but really it comes down to some major components. The first line of defense for me was talking to my son's teacher and asking him, does my son act like this at school? Does he throw himself out of his chair? Does he constantly fidget? Does he constantly want to walk away from an activity that is not engaging or super interesting to him? And she told me no. She said, he has no issues at school, so let's problem solve to see how we can help him. And that's kind of where all of this first started.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the number one things, and even when I was asked for a quote by the New York Times, was why do kids listen to their teachers and not their parents? We talk about the fact that different behaviors get paired with different people in different environments. So home is traditionally not paired for school with kids. You know, they're not paired with sitting quietly and studying, and maybe for homework, but realistically, most autistic kids aren't getting homework. So maybe they're used to doing it with that the therapist, but they're not really used to seeing a parent in that role. So they have to relearn how to see a parent and how to see home as a school type of environment. Now, parents are not going to be happy about me saying this. I do not predict schools will open again in 2020, at least on the East Coast, where I am in New Jersey. I could be wrong, but I predict that's not going to be the case. So I think it's important that parents figure out how to make it work. And like you said, it does take time. It's going to take kids time to relearn how to do things. And even for teachers, for practitioners, for parents, for the kids, we're all figuring this out together. This is an unprecedented time. It's why I have you as a mom on. It's why I'm doing this week a webinar with autistic adults on how to get really the kids to help the kids. So it's really all of us working together and strategizing and making it work. But I can't tell you the importance of the communication. Now, I've had the privilege of working with some amazing families where we're communicating really, really well, and the kids are doing exceptionally well. And what I'm finding is, of the kids that I'm working with and families I'm consulting with, the more that parents have an open and honest dialogue, the better things are. A lot of parents are afraid to tell teachers, it's just not working, or they're embarrassed by the fact they can't get their child to do something. The reality of this is we know and we understand and we get it. And we do usually have tools to help, but it's just about asking for them and asking for strategies. As a parent, you don't have to know everything. I mean, we went to school for this, we studied this, I studied behavior. I have a master's degree, and I was one course away from finishing a second master's degree in behavior science. So, I have had a lot of experience. I've worked with thousands or hundreds of kids, if not thousands of kids. And what I know things that you as a parent may not have thought of trying. So it's okay to ask for help. I think parents need to understand it's okay to ask for help, and really to understand that no one has the perfect answer right now, but if you try enough things like you did, it will work. So what did your behaviorist strategies, what strategies did they give you to work for your son that are working? Now, they may not work for every parent, but that maybe you have the answer for, another child similar to your son might respond to the same intervention.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the first thing that I did, because I wanted to kind of know if I was the problem, if I was enabling certain behaviors, because our sessions were it was just a lot of dealing with behaviors instead of education. So I asked my son's ABA supervisor to sit in on one of the virtual sessions with my son's teacher. And my son's teacher was perfectly fine with it. And then we asked if the ABA supervisor could provide us with feedback, both me as the mom and the teacher, on things that we could do differently. Because my son is a very tactile, hands-on learner. So sitting in front of a screen is not engaging unless you're like playing something really animated and, not necessarily educational. So the ABA supervisor sat in, and at the end of it, she was like, Talon won't even sit during ABA sessions for 30 minutes. So why are you expecting him to sit for 30 minutes for school? We give him movement breaks, or we do behavioral momentum, which is where you do easier activities that boost a kid's confidence. And then you try something a little more challenging. And I didn't even think about that, sitting here expecting him to sit and engage and attend for 30 minutes. So what we did is we created a visual card for my son. It's blue and it has the word break on it. And because my son is so visual, anytime he starts to wiggle or looks like he wants to move around or get up, I hold up the break card and I say, do you need a break? And he'll say break, or yes, or no, or something, whatever is kind of he wants to say that day. And so then we'll do behavioral momentum. He really likes numbers. So we'll play a card game with numbers, or we'll do a yoga pose, or we'll do 10 jumping jacks. So he gets proprioceptive input, and that gives him a little bit of what he needs. And then he can sit back down, and then he can do another 7 to 8 minutes. So that was kind of our first strategy, kind of coming from the behavioral approach, that really started to make a difference was her having eyes on what was happening, and then giving both myself and the teacher feedback on what we could be doing differently.
That's awesome. Well, first, I just want to say you're such a good mom. Just the fact that you even know the term behavioral momentum, I bet a lot of ABA people watching this don't even remember what that was from their textbooks. And really all the parents watching this, I mean, your kids are so lucky to have you as parents. I mean, the fact that you're watching a video, probably you're watching this at the end of the day or while you're cooking or doing something and kids are screaming in the background, you're tired and you really just want to like drink a bottle of Pinot Noir. We're way past the glass of Pinot Noir stage. You probably just want to drink the whole bottle and like Netflix and chill. And instead you're researching how to help your kids. So I just want to commend you for that, first of all. It's what you're saying is absolutely true. Not all children respond to screens. I have kids that I work with that they're really, really visual and they respond really well to electronics and they love electronics. I have children I work with that they don't want to attend to electronics at all. And what I'm doing for those kids is I'm providing them and I'm providing the parent with activities that they can do during the sessions with kids. So a lot of teachers and a lot of therapists, they're doing things like boom cards, or they're doing things like Google Slides, or they're doing different, like I love some of the PBS games for my kids. I'm using Starfall with some of my kids, and that will work really, really well for some learners, but it won't work for all learners. I have one child I work with, she doesn't like YouTube. It's like, I've never actually met a child that doesn't like YouTube, but this child doesn't like YouTube. So I'll have activities and I'll send it to mom and I'll have her print it up. And the reality of it is if your child is that child that's not going to attend to the screen, as a parent, it's probably going to be more work for you. And it's more work for the therapist because we have to prepare activities ahead of time. So if I want to work on, for example, colors, whereas one child I can do a color YouTube video and it's really effective and it's working and the child likes it and they're learning. So that's awesome. Another child I might need to make I made a bingo game where we actually this week where I had her and her brother sit down and there was bingo cards and they had to match the different objects that were different colors into their bingo cards. And it was really fun and really effective. So it may require different levels of work. Now, a lot of things also, like you talked about, that parents really need to take into account is a child's sensory needs. And understanding that a lot of times we ask kids to do something that they really shouldn't be able to do. So for example, I work with early intervention and I work with kids that are under the age of 2. Well, those kids will be asked to sit for 45 minutes. That's actually not developmentally appropriate. The kids typically that are 2 years old, they don't sit for 45 minutes. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not important they get intervention for 45 minutes, but you do have to get up, you do have to move, you do have to change the stimulus. And the reality of it is you're asking your child who has a developmental delay to learn a skill that's developmentally advanced. So being patient with kids and understanding that is really important. The reality of it is a lot of our kids, they get a lot of therapy and they get a lot of services, and they really truly do need those services in order to get to be the best version of themselves and to get support they need. But it's hard. And taking into account a child's sensory needs, using stimulus that's appropriate for that child. If they're a visual, use visual stimulus. If they're tactile, use tactile stimulus. If they're kinesthetic, get up and do those movement breaks. It's so important for everyone. And for me, when I am working with a child, if I'm getting bored sitting at my computer screen, I know the child has been bored already. So I know we have to get up and we have to do something about it. So can you talk a little bit about your son's sensory needs? And I know you said you found a way to address those needs while you're doing homeschooling. That's something that a lot of practitioners overlook. And I'm excited that your BCBA is actually acknowledging sensory needs. For a long time, a lot of the autism world was in denial about a child's sensory needs. But the truth is that children with autism have neurological differences. They process information, sensory input differently than typical kids do. And you cannot expect a child that processes sensory information differently to respond to the same type of treatment that another child would. It just doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense. And we talk about ABA, the goal is to help a child improve. And I do believe that there's a lot of things we can do, even health-wise, to help a child heal some of the sensory impairments that they have and the neurological impairments. Because we call them differences, but sometimes it is truly an impairment and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a strength, but sometimes it's an impairment. There's things we can do from a medical model to help with that. But the reality of it is that we can't just behaviorally expect a child to change something that is neurological. It's not a behavior, there's not a behavioral solution to that. So as practitioners and as parents, it's critical we meet a child where they are. And that really means taking into account sensory information.
Yeah, exactly. And sensory for my son has been critical even throughout this last year since he got diagnosed. And so I know that he has a lot of sensory needs. And he doesn't like to sit in a chair. And whenever he starts to do that, I know that something is going on. So we try a couple different things. He's usually very sensory with his mouth. So we have a variety of chewies for him to chew on. And I always make sure I have them on the desk. Sometimes to satiate his sensory needs in his mouth, he likes to drink a lot of water. So I always make sure I have a large cup of water there available for him. A couple other things that I have noticed, which I actually didn't know until we started homeschooling, is that he likes to fidget. If he is working on a challenging task, he has to have something in his hand. And so we've tried a few different little toys that he likes, but what has worked best for my son is Theraputty, the firm Theraputty. And if it's tough, he likes to stretch it. He smushes it in his hands, but you will see direct eye contact into that computer if he is able to manipulate that Theraputty, which that has been huge. And a couple other things that we've tried, we bought a TheraBand, just like the cheap couple dollar TheraBand, tied it around the bottom of his chair. He likes to tuck his feet underneath the chair, get a little proprioceptive input on the top of his foot or something to fidget his foot with. But honestly, and this is actually very funny, and I can show a picture. The thing that has worked the best with my son is, I call it the box of beans. And literally, we bought a huge bag of beans and we put it in a box. And when he sits in his chair and does virtual school, he has his feet in the box of beans. So this is my son with his box of beans. And when he gets really overwhelmed, he actually likes to sit in the entire box of beans. And the second he sits in that box of beans, his mind is clear, he is engaged, he's responding. And it's just mind-blowing to see how a box of beans literally makes the biggest difference in his day.
Yeah, it's awesome. First of all, one of the reasons I love collaboration, and I truly believe one of the core values of my company is to collaborate with other professionals and, other parents even, and autistic adults. I'm actually one of the only ABA people who hires autistic adults to get their feedback on my curriculums before I introduce them to kids. But I love that you're bringing this up. I have done the beans with kids, and I love that. I tell parents all the time to do that. I have done the therapy. I will link to the therapy. If parents don't know what that is, I'll link to it in the description below. But I've never actually thought of using TheraBands, and I'm like, that is awesome. I already know a child that I'm going to call like tomorrow morning and say, I came up with a solution, even if it wasn't my idea. But that's why this is important. This is why we have to have these honest conversations. I might have worked with 1,000 kids. Another therapist might have worked with 1,000 kids, which means we might have 500 different strategies each that the other person hasn't heard of before. And, it takes a village. It takes a tribe. One of the things that I'm really passionate about is uniting the autism community and not having these debates. There's so much division between autistic adults and parents, and autistic adults and practitioners, and even practitioners in different fields who are arguing over who has the right approach. The reality of it is that you need all of the approaches, because a child is a whole individual. A child is not just a behavior. A child is not just a health problem. A child is not just sensory needs. But if you don't meet all of those needs of a child, you're not treating that child holistically, and you're not going to be effective. If a child, not all children that are autistic have related health issues, but many children do. If a child has an issue of the gut and they're feeling uncomfortable, they're feeling inflamed, and they have brain fog, they're not going to learn as effectively. If a child has sensory needs and sensory input, let's just say a child has too many neurons that are firing in their brain. They have overfiring neurons from their frontal cortex to their back, their muscles. So what happens is, let's say that child, you said your son needs to be holding something. Let's say the child really, really struggles with visual input. Visual input is creating an overfiring of neurons in the brain. This is real. The brain is literally producing too many cortical neurons. Well, when the child is fidgeting, what winds up happening is it's giving those neurons something to do. So you're making the child more available to learn. If you want to help a child's behavior, if you want to help a child learn, you have to help that whole child. And it's just been too long that therapists and parents have been arguing and fighting. Everything's important. And one of the things that I want parents to know and understand from watching this video and watching Leeza's story is that she's doing everything. And she's working with everyone to try to get something really effective for her son. And I can't stress enough the importance of that for parents to work with everyone. And also, if there's practitioners watching this, I know a lot of practitioners have been following my content. Work with each other. If you're an ABA, a BCBA, don't fight with the occupational therapist. Work hand in hand. You guys both people have amazing strategies. If you work together, it'll be far more effective. There's not this need of who has the best idea. It's not about us. It's so egotistical when a practitioner says, I have the right idea, I have the strategies, I have the way. No, you have experience in an area, and you're an expert in an area. And you can help a child in one area, but a child is not just your area. A child needs to be treated as a whole individual. They need to be respected. They need to be nurtured. And I can't, it's so incredible. So I love that you are making homeschooling working. I think a lot of us, like I said, this is going to be long-term. This isn't going away, in the next week. They say, I don't know, some states might start homeschooling or start school up in the summer. I don't think it's going to happen. Realistically, I don't think it's going to happen in September. So as a parent, do the best you can, continue to learn, continue to grow. You have an amazing blog out. I love reading your articles. If anyone wants to see Leeza's articles, go to Mama AF. That is her blog. That's the name of your website. We'll put the description on the link below in the description. Is there anything else, any advice, if you can give parents one parting thought, like one closing message on how to turn it around? Because like you said, we're 2 months or, in New Jersey, 3 months into this now. And for some parents, they're still really, really struggling. What would you say to that parent, that one thing that they could do to turn it around?
Yeah, I agree. And we have to be prepared for alternate school situations where, if it's some days at school, some days not. We're in this for the long run. But my advice would be, you already touched on focusing on all areas. Keep your whole team informed. Keep your OT informed. Keep your ABA informed, because they might hear pieces of information that they're like, oh, that makes sense for your kid. Let's try this, this, and this. And it feeds off of them. And as a parent, you just have to be super in tune with your child. I know if my son didn't sleep well, if he didn't eat a large enough breakfast, if he's constipated or something, all of those sensations in his body are going to affect his ability to be effective at school that day. And his team needs to know that. Going into virtual class, I'll be like, hey, teacher, he didn't sleep well last night. Today might be a little bit tough. Can we adjust the curriculum or what you're planning to do a little bit so that it's not so challenging for both you and him? Because the longer that school is challenging for the kids virtually, they're going to start to resist it. And they're going to start to not want to do school. And that's ultimately going to end up being a problem. And I have seen that firsthand with some of his classmates, is the kids are like, no, I don't want to do Zoom today. It's not fun. And so that team approach of finding the best way to engage your child, because my child is going to be very different than, you know, every other child out there, but finding those little key pieces that really make a difference in your kid's session is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have possibly said it better. That's amazing. So if as a parent, you're looking for free resources on how to help your child, I put together a set of flashcards that are working really, really well for the kids I work with. And I'm just giving them away. I mean, I think we have to we're all in this together. We have to stick together. They cost me nothing to make. And so I'm giving them away for nothing. So if you want to head over to, I put a website together, which is teletherapyresources.com. You can download your free flashcards. I put them out only 48 hours ago, and I had 1,600 people download them already. So get them while they're there, and I would love to share that with you just as a gift for your family and for watching this video to the end. Leeza, thank you so much for coming on here. It's a privilege and an honor to chat with you. I'm always inspired by you. I think you're awesome, and I love the work that you're doing in the mom community.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Great. Take care, everyone, and we'll see everyone next week for next week's video.